Good morning. Sitting here thinking about the foolishness of man and the mercies of God, and how merciful is God, and what a great God. The last week, a couple of weeks ago, we buried one of our ladies that was a part of our church from the first year, Sherry Pattison. And in this last week, we had the memorial service and burial for a couple, husband and wife, Pete and Sandy Sue, and for many years they've been a part of our church. Pete was one of these. He's a very quiet man. When you in the right environment, he'll talk and cut up, but he would be pretty quiet for the most part. And then you get talking to him about Bible, you find out this guy knows a lot of Bible. And asked around, and he was a Bible reader every day. And his brother that lives not too far away, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, my brother Pete, he would read. He said, especially Proverbs. He loved Proverbs. But I've talked to him and been a little taken back at his knowledge, scriptural knowledge, and I love that. I love when men decide this book is their book. And anyway, it's good, and it's good. What got me thinking about them is it's good to know there's a heaven, and that people are not facing any health problems, not struggling anymore. They're not lonely anymore, and they're just all kind. There's nothing but good about going to meet Jesus, and I look forward to the day. Obviously, the journey can be intimidating, can be a little scary, but what a good day to meet that one that paid for your sins, and to realize you come into his presence without spot or wrinkle. That's what Paul wrote in Ephesians 5, that he would present the church to himself without spot or wrinkle. And we're going to get to heaven with no flaws, like a chaste virgin. And of course, we all know we've disappointed him more times than we could remember. But we have a great God, a great, wonderful God. Thank the Lord for the church and the blessings on our church, a full building. And I say this on occasion and nudge you a little more. I hope you'll pray for our building situation. And we need some bus mechanics, bus drivers, and a couple more buses. But there's no point in buying any more buses. We've got an extra bus. I think I can't keep track what they have. The mechanics and the staff take care of the numbers, but we had to get rid of all the vehicles, and then we got a couple of gas-powered shuttles, and then diesel this and a natural gas that, and it's not been an easy thing to get our bus fleet. There's a time we were running 11 or 12 buses, and that was exciting. So many people, but you got to have mechanics, and we got to have drivers, and it's hard to get a bus license now in California. It's very difficult, not like it used to be. So anyway, we've got. We'd encourage, if you would, pray for our building situation, pray for our bus situation, and then of course, if you're going to have buildings and buses, we need finances. But we just want to have our money in order, and we want to have the resources to do a good job. And thankfully for the members of our church, our missionaries, we have, I don't know how often, I'm going to say every month or two, we're sending extra money for a need, a health problem, a building problem, a vehicle problem. Missionaries don't miss their support, but it's a blessing that we're able to send a little extra here and a little extra there, and that's because of your faithfulness, and I'm so thankful. I hope you'll pray, though. Pray about our church finances, pray about our church building situation, which those two are tied together unless somebody just wants to come along and build us a building, which I would be okay with that. And then the practical thing of drivers and mechanics. We've got to; those are big needs if we're going to have a good bus ministry. And I'm thankful for what we have, and for the folks who serve and work, but we don't have enough, and I'm just asking God to care for those things financially as well as manpower. Usually, money and manpower are the two big needs that are allowing us or hindering us from reaching souls. Today, I want to read something. I read this or handed this out to my senior philosophy class just recently, and I teach a Monday, Tuesday class, and it's just everything from credit cards to dating and college and career choices and divorce and all kinds of things, just everything that kids are going to face in life. And this is an article from 2014 by a guy named Nick Bolton. At that time, he was with the New York Times. And I'm just going to pick a few pieces out of this. But Steve Jobs and other high-end tech people are quoted in it. And so I'm just going to read you a couple lines. When Steve Jobs was running Apple, he was known to call journalists and talk about things. But he said, nothing shocked me more than something that Mr. Jobs said to me in late 2010. He said, the journalist said to Steve Jobs, so your kids must really love the iPad. And he said, they haven't used it. We limit, this is Steve Jobs, he says, we limit how much technology our kids use at home. And he says, I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. Then he got looking into it. The number of technology chief executives and venture capitalists who say similar things, there's so many of them. He says they strictly limit their children's screen time, often banning all gadgets on school nights and allocating aesthetic time limits on weekends. He was perplexed. Chris Anderson, the former editor of Wired, now the chief executive of 3D Robotics, a drone maker, has instituted time limits and parental controls on every device. My kids accuse me and my wife of being fascists and overly concerned about tech. They say that none of their friends have these rules. He said of his 5 children, ages 6 to 17, he says that's because we've seen the dangers of technology firsthand. These dangers, and he talks about and he lists the long list of things that different tech giants do. Some are allowed 30 minutes a day on any kind of device on school nights. And some allow their kids to have more time if it's creating, if it's art and music. He said children under 10 seem especially susceptible to becoming addicted. And so they have weekend rules. They have no screens in the home. And one of the rules from Mr. Anderson, he said, absolutely never, never, never any screen allowed in a bedroom. And all these different people, he names leaders of different organizations, and every one of them's got some kind of strict rules. And he said, one of the things he said, Steve Jobs said every evening, Steve Jobs says he makes a point of having a dinner at the big long table in their kitchen. The whole family's there. No screens are ever pulled out, ever, ever, ever. He says we sit at the dinner table, we discuss books we're reading, we discuss history and all different kind of things, but never is an iPad, a computer, or a screen pulled out. Now, there's more to that article. But the point is, we let these devices have too much control. The number of times in a given day, I think it's 300 times a day right now. People who've done surveys and watched people, I think it was 300 times a day, but that people pick their phone up and look at it, whether it be looking at social media or whatever it might be. Now, for me, my phone and my tablet are my calendar. And so I look at my calendar often because what am I supposed to do next? My phone calendar, like we would have before a paper calendar. But how guarded we need to be. And with that in mind, I just want to mention a couple of scriptures because of how dangerous these things. Mine eye, Lamentations 3:51, a very familiar verse. Jeremiah lamenting over the destruction of Israel, and in Lamentations 3:51, he says, "Mine eye affecteth mine heart." And just think about the mess we're in America. I know the schools are a mess and the universities are a mess. I know the professors and liberals are filling our kids' head with filth and garbage. But what are we as parents letting into the hearts of our children? Because mine eye affected my heart. So what the kids see or the adults see, it gets into our eyes and it affects our heart. And we grumble about the mess America has become morally and the mess we are politically and the tragic animal-like behavior of people, the horrible values, and how corrupt people have become. Well, mine eye affecteth mine heart. What are we watching? I mean, I remember as a teenager, people talking about the boob tube, and the TV, how it's just putting stupid into us. Well, we've gone way beyond the TV, and hundreds of channels on cable and whatever other ways we get TV into our homes, and then we've got all kinds of things on our tablets and laptops. It's just tragic. But mine eye affecteth my heart. You want to get your heart more tender toward God, control what goes into your eyes. You want to get your heart more at peace, be careful what goes into your heart, what goes into your eyes and into your heart. The eye gate is the controller, and you're watching violent movies, shooting, killing, and I don't mind that, but I don't like the sensual and the immoral. But if you shoot somebody, I don't mind on TV, obviously. But we should be so careful that violent things don't get us all worked up, and we have no rest. We can't go to sleep at night, and we should be so guarded. And especially we should be guarded about our children. But men and women, we should be guarded about what we watch. It is a fact. It's a reality. Matthew chapter 12, look at a couple verses, and these are familiar. If you're from our church, you've heard me allude to these over and over, but I just can't say it enough. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 34, generation of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And so you see, what goes into our eyes, Lamentations 3:51, affects our heart. And then here in Matthew chapter 12, out of our heart comes the things we say, the vulgar, the hateful, the suggestive, the just mean things. Well, they come from our heart. What affects our heart? Things that we see. And so we've got to get in control of what we put into our hearts and minds. Down at verse 35, the same passage, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth good things, an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth evil things. We need to be careful about the things that go into our heart. A couple of chapters later, Jesus continues this conversation in Matthew 15:18. Those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed the evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. So he says in verse 18, those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart. So what we see goes into our heart, affects our heart. What our heart is touched by and filled with, that affects our mouth. And he says that they defile a man. You want to know why we're so dirty? You think, man, people talk dirty. I'm shocked at conservatives who use vulgarity and inappropriate and suggestive comments and slurs, and people say, well, that's just a dirty world. It is, but you know what? People that are on the right side of morals and decency ought not. Our words ought to reveal what's in our heart, and they do. And when you see people screaming and hollering and vulgar and filthy, that's because their heart's filthy. It's because they've been seeing and reading and hearing dirty, and they put this filth into their heart, and then their heart develops it and puts it out into filthiness. And Christians, I want to challenge you today to be careful what goes into your heart. Now, everybody's different, and we've all got different opinions about what is too much or too little or whatever. But I'll tell you what, if we want to raise clean kids, we're going to have to control what goes into their eyes and into their ears. And I'm not saying isolate. I don't believe in isolation. I believe in instruction. If your kids are at home and it's clean, and they're in a school that's clean, fairly clean. No school is going to be perfect because it's got humans in it. A good church that's clean. They can go out and work in the world, and they'll hear some bad words and all, but they can filter that because they've had so much good put in here. As a sophomore in high school, I made a decision about vulgar language, listening to the men that were swearing and talking filthy around me, a 14 or probably 15-year-old kid. And I thought, these guys are filthy. And what are they thinking, talking that way around a kid? And I made a decision. I wasn't even a Christian yet, but I had a good home, and my home was clean. And our home was very clean and very discreet in behavior. And because of what I saw, of course, where we were living then, you couldn't hardly get any TV. There was no internet. And so what went into my eyes was clean. What got into my ears and my heart was clean. And so then my heart wasn't going to produce the shame and the filth. Oh, Christian, be careful what goes into your children's eyes and ears. And there's mental things that happen. There's biological things that happen with too much screen time. I'll just tell you, kids need to read books, shoot marbles, put together dominoes and card houses. Or kids need to play. They don't need to spend their lives in front of a screen. Now, you might say, well, my kids like it better. Well, sure they do. There's a lot of things you might like better that you shouldn't do. And so you just say that we're done. You're going to have to be bored stiff, or you're going to learn to enjoy life. And go ride a bike, ride a skateboard, go climb a tree, fall out, break your arm like one of my cousins did. There are things we've got to do, and let those kids get out. Get them away from screens. And parents, you get away from screens. Moms, you should not be on the phone all the time. And I don't mean on the phone talking to people. I mean on the phone reading social media posts and reading what's going on X, or what's going on Rumble or YouTube or whatever. Get that thing off. I said this not too long ago, but there was a time in our world when either at 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you turned the news on. And if you were really going to stay up with it, every day at 6 or at 10, you turned the news on, and the weather was always the last thing, and the sports was last, because they know that's all people really care about was weather and sports. And they'd have to drag themselves through all the, shootings and corrupt politicians and war in the Middle East. It's all the same stuff going on today. 6 o'clock, 10, and that's all the news you got. And now it's minute by minute. Now we know if there was a bus crash in Zimbabwe, and we know if there's a murder, in New York, and on and on and on. Anything. Stop it. Live where you live. Hold your spouse's hand and go for a walk. And don't talk about all the garbage in the world. And let's be careful what goes in, because it affects our heart, and then our heart affects our words and our behavior. That last passage in Matthew 12 and Matthew 15, Matthew 15:19, this heart is where you get the murders and the adulteries, the fornications and the lusts and all that. All the evil that comes out from the heart, and the heart got dirty because of the eyes and the ears, and we need to be guarded with what we see and what we hear. And you're going to have to make the decision on what, but I'll tell you what, we need to be more careful. And we need to clean up what we watch, what we hear. And yeah, we ought to get back to books anyway, good books. And anyway, hey, I'm glad you joined us on this Monday. Thank you for a great Mother's Day at our church. We had a wonderful weekend. People saved, Saturday out soul winning. And we've had the last Sunday, I think we had 18 or 20 people in the baptistry. That was great. And let's work hard. Let's work hard at this thing. It's the work of God. Jesus said, I must work the work of him that sent me. It's work. It's work. Let's work at it. And let's please our Father. He's so good to us. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week.